What if the most powerful move you could make is to walk away without a word? Too many women stay in situations where they feel invisible, undervalued, and emotionally exhausted, hoping that love will fix what's already broken. But here's the truth. You don't fix anything by shrinking yourself to fit into someone else's comfort zone. This video isn't about revenge, it's about respect, starting with yours. When a man doesn't recognize your worth, you don't beg, you don't chase, and you don't fight to be seen. You exit the room like a queen, with your head held high and your silence speaking louder than any argument ever could. And that silence, it echoes. It makes him sit with the reality that you're no longer available to be taken for granted. This is your turning point, not just in your relationship, but in how you see yourself. Because the moment you choose to walk away, not from weakness, but from clarity, you shift the power dynamic. You take back what was always yours, your self-worth, your dignity, and your voice. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly why walking away works, how to do it with elegance and confidence, and what happens when you stop settling for half love. So pause whatever else is going on in your world right now, and stay with me. This isn't just a video, it's a wake-up call. You're not losing him, you're finding you. Let's begin. You could explain yourself over and over again. You could tell him how his words hurt, how his actions made you feel invisible, how you were giving your all, and getting breadcrumbs in return. But here's the truth. Most people won't say out loud. People hear you differently when you're no longer available to explain. Walking away is not about dramatics. It's not about punishing someone or playing mind games. It's about finally realizing that repeating yourself to someone who doesn't value your voice is a waste of your energy and your power. There comes a point when words lose their meaning, especially when they've been ignored one too many times. That's when action becomes your only language. When you walk away, you disrupt the comfort zone he was living in. He got used to you always being there, always answering, always forgiving, always trying harder, even when he was giving less. And the minute you stop doing that, it creates space, a silence that forces him to reflect. Not every man will understand what he's lost immediately, but every man will feel it, because your absence removes the emotional access he once had to you. The version of you who picked up the phone, the version of you who stayed after being disappointed again and again, the version of you who believed love would change him. But silence carries a frequency that speaks volumes. It says, I've had enough, I'm choosing myself now. It's not cold, it's clear. And it forces him to confront what his behavior really cost him. A woman who would have given the world, if only he had handled her heart with care. When you leave without begging, without arguing, without defending your worth, you do something most women are afraid to do. You become untouchable, not in a cruel way, but in a self-respecting way. Because nothing shakes a man more than realizing he pushed away a woman who loved him fully, and now she's gone without warning, without fanfare, without needing to prove her pain. That silence, it's unforgettable. And that's why walking away speaks louder than anything you could ever say, because it's final, it's grown, it's rooted in clarity, not chaos. You're not trying to be heard anymore. You're making peace with not being understood. And that kind of emotional maturity is rare, powerful, and impossible to ignore. The moment you stop trying to make someone see your worth is the moment they're forced to question why they were ever blind to it. Let that be your strength. Let that be your legacy. Let your silence echo in all the places your words never could. So don't shout, don't explain, don't wait, just walk. Because when you do it with peace and certainty, you'll never have to repeat yourself again. There's a quiet moment, often in the middle of the chaos, where something in you just goes still. It's not anger. It's not even sadness anymore. It's clarity. And that moment is your first real sign. It's time to leave. You'll know it, because suddenly the excuses you used to make for him don't land the same. The words that used to keep you hopeful start to feel empty. You hear the same apologies, the same promises, but something in your spirit just doesn't respond the way it used to. That's your intuition whispering. You've outgrown this version of love. You might be tempted to ignore it, to stay just a little longer. Maybe if you communicate better. Maybe if you love harder. Maybe if you just wait it out. But here's the truth that hurts before it heals. If you're the only one growing, the relationship becomes your burden to carry. It's time to leave when your peace is consistently disturbed more than it's protected. When you find yourself explaining your worth more often than feeling it. When love becomes a battlefield, not a sanctuary. Relationships aren't supposed to be perfect, but they're supposed to feel safe. And if you're constantly questioning your place, your value or your reality, you're not in love, you're in survival mode. You know it's time to leave when staying starts to cost you more than it's giving you. When your mental health, your self-esteem and your joy are being chipped away, little by little. That level of emotional erosion doesn't happen overnight, but when it becomes your normal, you stop recognizing yourself. And that's when leaving becomes not just a choice, but a necessity. You may be afraid of what comes next, of being alone, of starting over, of what they'll say, but you should be far more afraid of what staying will continue to do to you. Time will pass either way. Healing will take time, but so will continuing to live in a place where your needs are never met, your voice is minimized, and your love is stretched to its thinnest form. If you have to beg someone to act right, to choose you, to meet you halfway, you're not in a partnership, you're in a performance. And no woman should have to perform to be loved. You leave when you realize your heart is no longer safe with someone who mishandles it. You leave when you stop making pain feel romantic. You leave when you remember that choosing yourself isn't selfish, it's sacred. And when you do leave, don't look back for validation. Don't second guess the version of you that finally had the courage to do what needed to be done. Trust her, because she's the one who'll lead you into your healing, your freedom, and ultimately into the kind of love you truly deserve. And no matter how long it took you to get here, remember this: walking away isn't giving up, it's growing up. There's something quietly powerful about absence. When you're always available, always responding, always present, people begin to forget your value. Not out of cruelty, but because human nature often takes consistency for granted. But the moment you remove your energy, your attention, your presence, everything shifts. That's the psychology of absence. It creates space for reflection. And in that space, the mind starts to remember what it lost. People are wired to crave what they can no longer reach. When you're constantly there, your presence becomes background noise. But when you withdraw, the silence becomes loud. That's when your worth becomes visible. Not because it changed, but because it's no longer within arm's reach. See, when you walk away with grace and without chaos, you leave behind a powerful emotional contrast. And contrast is what wakes people up. He doesn't feel your worth while he still has unlimited access to it. But take that access away, and suddenly everything he overlooked becomes impossible to ignore. It's not manipulation, it's nature. People don't value what they don't have to work for. And if you were always the one showing up, always forgiving, always waiting, it created a dynamic where your presence felt guaranteed. But once you're gone, he doesn't just miss you. He misses the version of himself he got to be around you. The comfort, the validation, the emotional safety. Absence is powerful because it forces him to sit in discomfort. And discomfort breeds awareness. He has to notice the space you once filled, the calls that aren't coming, the support that's no longer there, the peace of your presence, now replaced by the silence of your absence. Here's the key. It only works when your absence is real, not a game, not a bluff. When you're genuinely done trying to convince someone to see your value, the energy changes, and that shift, he feels it even if he never says it out loud. Psychologically, humans begin to assign more value to things once they become scarce. When your emotional availability goes from constant to non-existent, it triggers curiosity, regret, even longing. But more importantly, it forces him to confront a hard truth. You were never asking for too much. You were just asking the wrong person. And while he's finally realizing what he lost, you're learning what you never needed to beg for in the first place. Absence isn't just about making him miss you. It's about breaking the cycle where you were always showing up for someone who kept leaving you empty. It's reclaiming your emotional energy and placing it back where it belongs, with you. When done from a place of clarity, not bitterness, absence becomes a mirror. It shows him who he was, and it shows you who you've become. Because the right person won't need your absence to realize your value. But the wrong one, sometimes it's the only language they finally understand. If you really want him to feel your absence, you have to stop trying to prove your worth and start embodying it. That means cutting off access to the parts of you he once took for granted. The emotional support, the loyalty, the soft place to land, the version of you who answered every late night call, forgave every broken promise, and stayed long after the respect was gone. That version has retired. Letting him feel your absence doesn't mean slamming the door or sending a dramatic goodbye text. It means disappearing with dignity. No explanations, no warnings, no one last heart to heart, just gone. Quietly, peacefully, powerfully. That's the kind of silence that echoes. See, when you walk away emotionally, but still text, still check in, still stalk his socials, still wait for a response, you're not gone. You're still lingering, still hoping, still giving him emotional access, even if you've physically left. And that won't make him feel your absence. It'll make him feel your confusion. If you want the impact to be felt, you have to create a full energetic disconnection. That means no contact, no breadcrumb conversations, no just checking on you messages. You show him without ever saying it that you are no longer an option. And you don't do it to make him chase you. You do it because you finally realize that a woman who knows her worth does not audition for love. Let him wonder. Let him sit in the silence. Let him scroll through old photos and remember what it felt like to be loved by you. That's not revenge. That's the consequence of his choices. You're not trying to make him hurt. You're simply no longer shielding him from the pain of losing someone who loved him unconditionally. But here's the key. While he's feeling your absence, you need to be busy building your presence. Not in his life, in yours. Reconnecting with the parts of you that got lost in trying to be enough for him. Rebuilding your self-respect. Pouring your energy into healing, growing, glowing. Because the more you focus on becoming whole again, the less you even care if he feels the loss. And that's when he really feels it. When the energy shifts so completely that he no longer has a window into your world. You're not available for emotional labor. You're not reacting to his silence. You're not trying to be missed. You've simply become unreachable. And not in a petty way. In a powerful, evolved, self-possessed way. That's how you let him feel your absence. By removing your light from his life and placing it back into your own. By refusing to be an option in a space where you deserve to be a priority. By walking away with so much peace, it leaves behind a silence he'll never forget. And maybe, just maybe, he'll finally realize what he lost. But by then, you won't be waiting. Pain has a way of feeling final, like it's where the story ends. Like the heartbreak, the betrayal, the silence, or the rejection defines you forever. But what if pain isn't the ending? What if it's the beginning of something more powerful than you ever imagined? Transformation doesn't happen when things are easy. It happens when your heart is broken wide open, and you have no choice but to rebuild. When you've cried until your body is tired, when your mind is replaying every word, every moment, trying to make sense of what went wrong, that's when your real power starts to surface. Pain invites clarity. It strips away illusions. It shows you who was never truly there. And even more importantly, it reveals parts of you that you had forgotten. Parts that were buried under compromise, under waiting, under hoping for someone else to change. And when you're forced to sit with that pain instead of running from it, you begin to understand something sacred. You were never powerless. You were just giving your power away. Turning pain into power isn't about pretending it didn't hurt. It's about allowing it to teach you without letting it define you. It's about asking, what is this pain trying to show me about myself? Maybe it's pointing to your tendency to overgive. Maybe it's revealing how long you've stayed silent to keep the peace. Maybe it's highlighting a deep fear of being alone. Whatever it is, look at it, not to shame yourself, but to understand yourself. Because self-awareness is the first step toward true power. Then comes the decision. The moment where you say, I refuse to let this break me. I'm going to grow stronger boundaries. I'm going to love myself deeper. I'm going to stop trying to fix people who don't want to be fixed. I'm going to stop showing up for people who only show up when it's convenient. And I'm going to rebuild from this pain, not as a victim, but as a woman who now knows exactly who she is. That's what true transformation looks like. It's quiet. It's not about revenge or glow-up posts or proving a point. It's internal. It's choosing peace over chaos. It's loving yourself so loudly that no one's absence echoes louder than your self-respect. And the beautiful thing, one day you'll wake up and realize you haven't thought about him in days. That the pain you thought would destroy you was the exact thing that rebuilt you. That you're not bitter, you're better. Not because of what he did, but because of what you did with what he left behind. So don't run from the pain. Stand in it, face it, own it, then use it as fuel. Because your next chapter, it's not about who hurt you, it's about who you decided to become. And she is unstoppable. Setting boundaries isn't about building walls. It's about drawing lines that protect your peace, your time, and your self-respect. It's not a punishment for others, it's a standard for you. And the moment you start setting boundaries like a queen, everything in your life begins to shift. Because queens don't chase approval. They don't tolerate disrespect disguised as love. They don't over-explain, over-apologize, or overextend just to keep someone close. A queen knows that access to her is earned, not assumed. The truth is, most of us weren't taught how to set boundaries. We were taught to be nice, to not cause conflict, to keep others comfortable, often at our own expense. But every time you say yes when your soul is screaming no, you abandon yourself just a little bit more. And that self-abandonment, it adds up. Setting boundaries is how you stop betraying yourself. It starts small, not responding to messages that drain you, not tolerating inconsistent effort, not excusing behavior just because you have history. You stop allowing broken promises to be normal. You stop giving out unlimited emotional access to someone who shows up when it's convenient. You don't have to yell. You don't have to make a scene. In fact, real boundaries are calm, clear, and non-negotiable. It's as simple as, this doesn't work for me, and if it continues, I won't stay. You don't threaten, you decide. And then you act accordingly. People might get uncomfortable when you first start setting boundaries, especially if they benefited from you having none. But their discomfort isn't your responsibility. Your responsibility is to honor yourself, to stop editing your needs to fit someone else's limitations. A queen doesn't lower her standards to keep a seat filled at her table. She makes space for people who rise to meet her energy. And yes, that means sometimes being alone. But being alone in peace is far more powerful than being connected in chaos. The right people will respect your boundaries. They might not love them at first, but they'll adjust because they value you. The wrong people will get defensive, guilt you, or distance themselves. And that's not rejection. That's clarity. It shows you who was only there for what you could offer, not who you truly are. So stop fearing the fallout. Stop shrinking to be digestible. Stop explaining why you're no longer tolerating crumbs. You are not asking for too much. You're simply asking the wrong people to meet you where they cannot go. When you start setting boundaries like a queen, you stop living on emotional discount. You start choosing you, without guilt, without shame, without apology. And the moment you do that, you reclaim the throne you've always deserved to sit on. Because queens don't chase love, they choose it on their terms. And they know that real love honors the boundaries it's given. A lot of people confuse detachment with indifference, but they're not the same at all. One is rooted in strength and emotional maturity. The other is rooted in numbness or avoidance. And if you've ever walked away from someone you loved, you know the difference in your bones. Indifference says, I don't care. Detachment says, I care, but I care about myself more. Indifference is cold, it's disconnected. It's a defense mechanism to avoid feeling pain. It pretends not to feel. But detachment feels everything. It just refuses to let those feelings control the outcome. That's power. When you're indifferent, you're emotionally shut down. You close the door because you're afraid to be hurt again. So you pretend the person never mattered. But that kind of emotional denial only delays your healing. It hardens you. And in the end, it costs you more than anyone else. Detachment, on the other hand, is soft but strong. It means you still have love in your heart, but you've released the need for that love to be returned in order for you to feel whole. You're no longer attached to how things should have been. You've accepted what is, and you've chosen peace over control. That's the key difference. Indifference blocks connection, while detachment honors it, but lets go with grace. Detachment sounds like, I love you, but I won't sacrifice myself to keep you. I feel the pain, but I won't let it define me. I wanted more, but I won't settle for less just to feel wanted. You don't need to be angry to walk away. You don't need to stop caring to choose yourself. In fact, the most powerful form of healing comes when you learn to let go while still loving yourself and wishing them well. That's not weakness. That's evolution. Detachment is clarity. It's the realization that you cannot force someone to grow, to change, or to love you the way you need. And so instead of trying to control the outcome, you release your grip, you return to your center, you focus on healing the parts of you that believed your worth depended on being chosen. Indifference disconnects you from your emotions. Detachment connects you to your higher self. And when you learn the difference, everything changes. You stop internalizing other people's choices. You stop making their inability to love you properly mean something about your value. You stop breaking yourself into pieces to be more digestible. You simply release, not because you no longer care, but because you finally care enough to walk away from what keeps hurting you. And you do it without bitterness, without needing closure, without waiting for them to understand. That's the quiet, unshakable power of detachment. And the moment you choose it, you stop being ruled by what you feel and start being guided by what you deserve. Let's end this with the truth. You may have forgotten along the way. You are the prize. Not because of how much you gave, not because of how long you stayed, not because you tried to love him through his wounds. You are the prize simply because of who you are. And if someone couldn't see your value when you were giving them your best, that's not a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of their limitations. You don't become more valuable when someone finally realizes what they lost. You were always valuable. The only difference now is you finally believe it too. You don't have to chase love. You don't have to beg for effort, attention, or clarity. The right person will never make you question whether you're enough. And the moment you stop trying to earn what should be freely given, you create space for something real, something worthy of the woman you're becoming. Being the prize doesn't mean you think you're better than anyone else. It means you've stopped settling for less than you deserve. It means you've raised your standards not out of ego, but out of healing. It means you're no longer willing to accept half love, broken promises, or emotional scraps just to say you have someone. You are not here to be chosen by someone who doesn't recognize your light. You are here to choose yourself over and over again until the love you give away is matched, mirrored, and deeply honored. So walk away like a queen, not to prove anything to him, but to remind yourself of everything you bring to the table. You are not a placeholder. You are not a backup plan. You are not an option. You are the prize. And anyone who fails to treat you like one simply isn't qualified to sit at your table. Let this be your closure. Let this be your turning point. And from this moment forward, never forget what you bring into every room. You are not hard to love. You were just trying to love someone who couldn't hold you. Now it's your time, your power, your peace, your glow up. Own it.